Hi, it's Bobby. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the process of treatment planning. This class has gone by so fast, but anyway, let's talk about treatment planning for a minute. The goal behind treatment planning is to identify the problems that you're going to work on with the client, and and then to identify what you're going to do, what the client's going to do in order to be able to help attain those problems, attain some resolution of those problems. So let me give you an example. When you go through and you do the psychosocial evaluation, by the way, I just want to mention when you guys do psychosocial evaluations, if there's areas that there's no information for, like for instance, there's no children, instead of leaving the area blank, you didn't know this, so I didn't do anything about it. Instead of leaving that area blank, if you could just put down not applicable, because it shows the fact of somebody who's looking over your evaluation that you actually paid attention to it. What happens is that it's hard to be able to tell. If you leave just a blank space on a psychosocial, it's hard to know whether or not that's because you didn't ask the question or because you asked the question and there was no data to record. So if you could, just for future reference, when you do that, if you could just record that not applicable to the person, it doesn't have like children or whatever, just taking medication or whatever. So anyway, you go through and you do your psychosocial, and if there's a doctor's involvement, you get information from the doctor or the psychiatrist, whoever. Then you come up with a list of problems that the person's experiencing. Excuse me. Now, you may not be able to deal with all those problems in treatment. So for instance, if somebody lost their job because of their addiction, or they just lost their job for whatever reason, or they have been unemployed for a period of time, you may not be set up to do vocational counseling, but you want to be able to identify the fact that you knew that that problem existed. Just because you can't deal with it doesn't mean you don't identify it, because then it just looks like you missed it, and you don't want that to be A, it's not good treatment for that, and B, if anybody was ever to review your chart, whether it was an accreditation board or whomever, you want to be able to demonstrate the fact that you were aware of the fact the person had the problem. It's just that you chose not to do anything about it. And so a lot of times that you may, for instance, you may defer something till after treatment. So I may want to send somebody for vocational testing, but I'm not going to do that right now, because right now there's a lot of other things that they're working on that are more important than being able to go for vocational testing. So I may defer that until after treatment, or I may defer that for another, few weeks. And sometimes I refer things out. So if I am working with a client who suffers from depression and they need to get evaluated for a medication, I may refer them to the psychiatrist for that level of care, so that I'm not trying to say I'm going to do anything about their depression, because I can't do anything about the depression. Excuse me. Oh. I'm not a psychiatrist, so I can't do anything about that. So I may take that part and just refer those clients out. So basically what I'm looking at is, when I do a treatment plan, identifying the problems that the client's going to work on, and then what would I like to see happen. So if a problem is, remember, the problem has to be a problem to the client. So if I drink alcohol and I drink 5 beers a day on a daily basis, that may not be a problem for me. It may be a problem for other people in my life. It may be a problem for my spouse. It may be a problem for my job. It may be a problem, but I don't see that as being a problem. So that may not be a problem for me. So when it comes to identifying the problem, it becomes helpful to say why that's a problem. So if the issue gets to be that, well, I drink 5 beers a day, and because of that I'm not able to go to work on a regular basis, or I'm always late and my job is in jeopardy, then I would say vocational difficulties related to possible potential use of alcohol. And then I would say the client is in trouble, has been warned by his supervisor that if he doesn't stop coming to work late, he's going to lose his job. Patient states that the reason why he comes into work late, it has to do with alcohol use. So you want to be able to come up with a problem statement that the client really participates in being able to identify. If you work out problem statements that the client doesn't see as being a problem, they're not going to work on it. I mean, they're just not. So, you want to be able to find things that they identify as being a problem as well. So, for instance, one of the things could be is that if I am somebody who drinks heavily and my spouse is getting really mad at me, I may want to be able to work on the issues related to the family dynamics, not because I think that my alcohol use is a problem, but because my family does, and they're annoying me. So I may want to identify that as being an issue. But if you say that the goal then is to have me quit drinking, then I'm going to say, well, I don't want to talk to you then. So I may then just talk about the idea that the problem would be that the patient is having family dysfunction related to his or her use of alcohol, and because the family seems to be angry over it, and a goal would be to have the family come in and be able to discuss options as it comes to family involvement or whatever. And then you would make a list of things, that the client is going to work on. So what are a list of things that the client's going to do? And you want to be as specific as possible. So you want to say that the client will attend family group on Saturdays between 1 and 3. And the patient will identify in his or her assignment on taking a look at palace and manageability, how their alcohol use has affected their relationships with others. And then you're going to make a list of what the staff is going to do. So it's going to be what's the patient going to do, what's the staff going to do, or you do vice versa, it doesn't matter. But you want to be specific. So how do you know when that goal is being met? So the client's family will be involved in family therapy 2 times, a minimum of 2 times for the client's treatment. That way you know whether or not it is something that is going to be attainable. If you were to say something like, the family will get along better, there's no way of measuring that. A goal always needs to be measurable. It needs to be measurable and attainable, and needs to demonstrate objectives of how you'll know whether or not you get there. So to say something like, the family will come in for 2 sessions and will also participate in Al-Anon family programs, is a way of being able to, it meets the criteria for all those things. You'll know whether or not they came in, you'll know whether or not they went to Al-Anon, and you'll know whether or not, so you're able to identify specifically, this is what we're looking for them to do, and this is what they did. Just because you put it down, identify it, and they don't do it, doesn't mean that you've done something wrong. But it does become a clinical issue. So if I have a client whose family members, I'm really into family today apparently, who I want the family to come in for family, as a therapist, I want the family to come in for family therapy, and the client has really not been willing to let that take place, just because that's a goal and an objective in the treatment plan, I can go back and identify, like, what is it that's getting in your way of inviting your family in? Like, what is the fear that you have about about having them come in, so that it becomes, it doesn't always go so swimmingly well. Sometimes there's times where a client may have some resistance to something, or a client is in outpatient treatment and the goal is that they're going to be sober consecutively for 21 days. And they have not been able to get beyond 15 days without getting drunk. So what is it that gets in your way of being able to stay sober beyond that 15th day? Let's talk about some of the things that are relapse issues for you, and how can we identify how to be able to change that. So those things get to be, and that all those things get processed in the progress notes, and we're going to talk more specifically about that one. But to start out with, all we're going to do is identify some of the problems for the person on your psychosocial. And if you want to, I know that we have the psychosocial, the treatment planning due, but I'm willing to work with you on that. So if you want to start making a list and send that list to me of what are some of the problems that the person has, what would be, and you just do simple, like, this is a problem list of what the problems that the patient has, and how you know their problems, like how do you identify those being problems. So the patient has been drinking excessively, and, okay, so get this one. The patient has been drinking more than 5 beers per day and has a DUI. The problem the client really has there is they have legal dysfunction. They may not have, in their mind's eye, a drinking problem. DUI clients are a very interesting lot, because a lot of times they don't see that as being, that the drinking as being the problem. They see the police officers being the problem. I swear. But so you want to be able to help them identify, so what is the problem? How do you know it's a problem? What would be a goal? Like, if you were to see the client as having some successful change from that problem, what would that look like? what is the client going to do, and what is the therapist going to do. So we're going to just create a 5-column form, and and I'll create it for you and send it to you. I don't know how to do that. You guys are all doing this box thing. I don't know what that is, but I'll make a form for you, and then you guys can just recreate it. And I need you to identify at least 3 problems in the client's life that you're going to address while they're in treatment. So we're going to make a list of what the problems are. It's a statement that says basically as evidenced by. So the client has been having some medical consequences as a result of his or her relationship with cocaine, as evidenced by their lab values are their liver enzymes are elevated, and then what would be the goal? What would you like to see happen? What would be the client's participation in that? What would be the staff's participation, being as specific as possible? And then there's a thing called a target date, which we're not going to get into yet. So we're going to start with this part. If you could start by getting me that list of 3 items, filling out the form, and get it to me by Wednesday. Tuesday night at 9, I'd be willing to do a little Zoom session if you want to. So we could talk a little more about that. So why don't we set up, so Tuesday night at 9, if you're available, we'll do a Zoom session. If you're not available, it doesn't work against you. That was really great questions. Some of you I know are not available at nighttime. And then we'll go from there. So I'll send you the form, and I'm going to watch this again to see if it makes sense. Okay, thanks. Bye.